Welcome to Our Drummers Musicians, your backstage pass to Melbourne's vibrant music scene. Recorded on a cosy couch in Brunswick, join us as we explore what it truly means to be a musician as we speak to the diverse talents that make music in our city. Today we have the pleasure of chatting with Amber Ferraro, a powerhouse vocalist, DJ and producer. Known as the captivating frontwoman of her groove and disco band Honey, and the dynamic lead vocalist of Sunshine and Disco Faith Choir, Amber electrifies every stage she graces. As a resident DJ at 161 nightclub in Param, she sets dance floors on fire, and her talent doesn't stop there. Amber has shared stages with international heavyweights like Luke Van Dyke, Coulter, and DJ Coes, among others. Last year, her band Honey dropped their debut EP First Lick, and Amber herself also released Alchemy, a single and collaboration with her partner Crozier. Amber is also the co-creator of Silhouette, a unique, kink-curious electronic music event that's making waves in Melbourne. Get ready to be inspired by Amber's creativity and infectious energy. We want to take a moment to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians on the land in which this podcast was recorded. We pay our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I want to start with, what is the most recent album that you've listened to?
Oh, the most recent album that I listened to was the most recent Michelle and DiGacello album.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to that before I went and saw her.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, which I actually saw you at.
Yeah, it was a great gig. What did you think?
Amazing. And she played a lot of the songs off that album as well. And there's something about that album that's such a large sonic landscape. So sometimes it doesn't quite hit you if you're just listening to it on your portable speaker.
Yes.
But hearing it live, whoa, I cried many times.
It was a very special gig.
Yeah.
The whole night was amazing and so special. And she's just so cool as well.
She's so cool.
Like, what a vibe.
I want to be her when I grow up.
So, I haven't seen you properly since we were at uni together. It's only just like randomly crossing paths. So I thought it'd just be really cool to hear like what you've been doing since, you graduated as a jazz vocalist into, all these awesome projects that you're doing now.
Yeah, oh my gosh, there's so much to go through. Yeah, wow. I feel like when I was at uni, so I did 2 years full-time and then I did 2 years part-time. And I did 2 years part-time because when I got to my third year and I was going to have to do my third year recital, I was coming up against this whole idea of being a jazz singer and what that meant. And I was realizing I didn't just want to be a jazz singer, which in part was kind of going against the institutionalization that I was part of. And it felt a little bit rebellious, but it also felt like flexibility for me in my career. And I'm really grateful that I chose that path of flexibility, and that helped me to form Honey. And we've done incredible things together, and that helped me to meet Sunny and become part of the choir.
Yep.
And which actually, shout out to Belle Bangard for giving me that gig. Because she was doing that and then she called me and was like, it's not my thing, but it's totally your thing. And she was correct. And that helped me to diversify into doing corporate singing as well and working with amazing people there and doing events and weddings. It helped diversify me into singing on lots of different electronic music tracks, some which hit #1 in the ARIA Club charts. It helped to make me into a DJ. But yeah, that was a really big change in some ways, but also a really, really great thing. I'm so happy that I chose to do that and that I'm able to express my music in that way. And also run these amazing events that I run with my partner, Crozier, called Silhouette, which are flourishing at the moment. They're just awesome. The community blows me away every time we run these events. We ran one recently and yeah, wow. I'm really proud of us. Yeah.
It's pretty special.
Yeah.
So how often do you have one of the events with Silhouette?
At the moment, we're going to be doing them every 3 months at 161 Nightclub. It's been a real journey of finding a venue that wants to work with the vision that we have. And I've been DJing at 161 in September, sorry. It will be coming up to 2 years of DJing there.
Yeah.
I usually am there on a Friday night. As a Friday night resident, Jay Ramon, who's one of the managers there, he really took me under his wing. And he'd actually initially seen me as a singer. I was singing at these events called Nonchalant, which were very like Southside based immersive events where you would have dinner and there would be burlesque and singing and very, very awesome, cool events. And he had initially seen me there and kind of hit me up and was like, if you ever need some help in finding producers that you would like to sing with, like, you know, I can help you with that. And I was like, thank you so much. That's awesome. And then I started putting out sets on SoundCloud for DJing. And he sent me a message and said, hey, I'm looking for someone to fill a spot downstairs at 165, which is their little downstairs venue. It's actually a different address, which is why it gets called 165.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, he then just kind of like mentored me from there, which I'm really, really grateful for. They weren't my first DJ gigs, but they've been really pivotal in my career as a DJ. And just through that relationship and then the relationship with other managers and bar staff at that venue, there's so much trust there. So when Crozier and I went to them and said that we'd love to run a Silhouette there, they were so excited. I don't think I'd ever seen that kind of excitement from a venue before.
Okay.
And yeah, that just means that we're so well taken care of and we can run them a little bit more regularly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Like you do a lot of these like creative projects with your partner Crozier. Could you tell us a bit about like, you know, how you guys like work together and how you chose? Because I'm really interested in things about like why did musicians choose to work with the other musicians they choose to, you know, like in a band role or in a partnership role or, you know, with friends or not, just like purely professional. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So Crozier, or Geordie, is my romantic partner and also my business partner as well. And that felt really natural to begin with. Geordie is just such a supportive person and a really good listener as well. And there's so much for me personally in writing and even coming and like doing a singing session with somebody. There is a level of intimacy and vulnerability there. So to have somebody that you trust and that you already share intimacy with, it just felt, yeah, really natural to go down that path. And he's a musician as well. He's a great producer. He writes amazing songs. He's just come out with another EP. And
Cool.
it's great. I might be biased, but I'm not.
What's it called?
Oh, what's this one even called? I can't even remember. How good am I? I'm such a good partner. I know that my favourite track off that EP is called The Garden. That song, when Geordie was writing that overseas, I was like, this track is a great track.
Cool.
Yeah, far out. And yeah, so we've written a few songs together. We wrote the first song that we put out together was called Floating, and that was off the Floating EP, which was his first EP. And Geordie had sort of like, he'd written the bed for me. Like, he'd written all the chords, and he'd written the bass line, and he'd written all the drum patterns, and he'd put this beautiful song together. And then I went away, literally just into the kitchen. And I was like, give me a moment, I'm going to write something. So I laid down, I like wrote a little melody and wrote the vocals, and then we recorded that. And we got to sing it live at this event that one of our friends, Miss Farina, runs, called Kitchen Club. And that's like a beautiful, sober-friendly event. And that was such a special moment because I wrote the lyrics and the melody about that particular event. So to then perform it live, so like Geordie was DJing and then I got to sing it live at that event. Yeah, it was great. I feel like I've kind of diverged from the initial question, but
No, but it's cool. It's about the special stuff that you can do.
Yeah. When that trust is there, there's a lot of special stuff that you can do. And I wouldn't say it's always easy. I can sometimes not be the easiest person to work with personally in terms of I sort of want things to be like a particular way, but Geordie's really good at like pushing me out of my comfort zone. Like a lot of the time when I'm writing lyrics and stuff like that, I want it to be a really internal process and like be in my own space. And Geordie's always encouraging me to just like, let's do it together. And I'm like, that feels scary. But yeah, when that trust is there and you're like, oh, maybe this sounds really naff, but I'm going to like sing this line anyway. And then maybe he also turns around and is like, yeah, okay, maybe that's not it. Then it's, yeah, it's all right. Or sometimes I'm like, actually, I really need to just have you leave the room. And then he's like, okay, I'll leave the room. I'll go. And yeah, we're able to just flow in that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to have the trust and the safety of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about the guys in your band, Honey? How did you go about, choosing them and like, what's the structure of that collaboration?
Yeah, for sure. So Honey started I guess it would have been 2016 because I put all of those guys together for my final recital. And not all of them had played with each other, but I had played with all of them. And a few of them had like played with each other, but like not all together. And yeah, I guess there was a little bit of matchmaking in a way. Understanding people's personalities and their dynamics and also their playing styles. But also I just loved every single one of them as human beings and how I interacted with them. So I thought, why not? I'll put them together for my recital, and if this is a good thing that comes out of it, then let's make a band.
Mm.
And at the time, another band that I was part of was sort of falling apart, and we were playing at the Nightcat, and Justin, who owns the Nightcat, he could see that that band was falling apart. And yeah, he said to me, if you put together something else, let me know and we'll give you some Saturdays to do 2 1-hour slots, because that's how they used to run it.
Okay.
Back in the day. So yeah, I put together that band, and then we started doing the 2-hour slots, and we were mainly just playing covers. Like soul covers, disco covers, some R&B covers, and yeah, there was a real gelling that happened. There was a real magic, and there still is, even though the lineup has changed a little bit. There was just, and there is just this magic that happens when we play together, and a lot of us come from really different backgrounds and worldviews and religious views. And yet we just get on with it. Like and we've had some conversations and there has been some headbutting in terms of what people's beliefs and viewpoints are. But when we get together and we play, it doesn't matter anymore. And I feel like that band, and I reckon I could actually confidently say this about other members in the band as well. But what it's taught me so much about acceptance, not agreement. Don't have to agree on like this faction of like religion or like our worldviews. We can actually have different ones, and it's okay. We don't have to agree, but we have these conversations, and then there's this level of understanding, and what comes out of that is like more intimacy, like into me you see. And now I understand you even more. And guess what? Now that translates to the music even more, because now there's more trust, and that I know you deeper than I knew you before, and you make more sense to me. So therefore, when we're having a musical conversation, you also make more sense to me. Yeah, I love those guys so much. They're amazing.
It sounds so special.
Yeah.
You know, like you're a great band, but it seems that, you know, also this collaboration and, like you say, all the different conversations and challenges that have brought you, you know, closer together to know each other better and has had like a significant impact on each of you, I'm sure, personally, but also musically as to why, you know, the band's so tight, or you've gone in different like creative directions with things, because you've got that closeness that you can, you know, confront each other with an idea for something or challenge this or that, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I feel like that happens with Geordie as well. But because we're in a relationship, it's just happened quicker in a way. Like we've been able to explore so many of those dynamics in a shorter space of time because we see each other every day.
Yeah.
So that level of intimacy was hit, you know, like it was created very quickly, and it was created a little bit longer with the band because we didn't see each other every day. And we're not one of those bands that ever like lived with each other. I don't think any of us have lived with each other. So it's just a matter of like sometimes seeing each other at uni and then getting together for practices, and like sometimes going out for dinner and then, you know, also playing. So in ways it's taken a little bit longer, but it's the same result.
So is the music that the band plays, like, is it predominantly your music, or is it like an equal footing band, or do people bring in different things? How's it work?
People bring in different things. I would have to say that the person who probably writes the most ideas is Quentin, who's our keys player. And potentially that's because he's like a chordal instrument. So he's got a bit of leverage on that side of things. But he's been such an incredible creative force in the band. But also like with our last EP, Sam Cox, who was our guitarist at that time, like he had such a creative stance in the band as well. But everybody brings something. And, you know, because the way that Miles plays drums is so Miles, like you can't get that out of him. Like he plays like him. And it's not like any of us could write a drum part to try and simulate him, because he just does his own thing. And that's exactly the same with Josh. Like Josh just pulls out these bass lines. Like maybe Quentin has laid down like some kind of bass line, but then Josh, like what he does with it is just, I still get mind blown. And sometimes these things change on the gig as well. Like we'll be at the gig and like we'll be playing the songs, and then out of nowhere comes this like bass line, or like Quentin starts doing this stuff on the keys, or like Miles starts doing this stuff on the kit, and you're like, I'm sorry, where did you pull that from? It's, yeah, they're all so great, and everyone is really very creative. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a talented and special bunch that, you know, you've put together with your trial run.
Trial run, it was successful. Like it went well.
Did you get a good mark?
Yeah, actually did. It was my first high distinction.
Oh, congratulations!
And I felt really cheeky because, yeah, I felt cheeky because, as I was saying at the very start, I was going through this whole thing around like I don't want to just be a jazz singer. I'm very, very grateful for my jazz education. It's amazing. But I don't just want to be a jazz singer. And my singing teacher at the time, Gerald Marco, who was my singing teacher in year 11 and 12, and I requested him for my final year.
Wow.
And initially Monash was like, we don't think that he's a very good fit. And I had to be like, he was my teacher in year 11 and 12. He's the reason I got into Monash. So he is a good fit. He was like, why don't we just stick it to the man? And I was like, how do we do this? And so we came up with this idea that I would sing Cherokee, and during my scat solo, I would improvise whilst singing the words for Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe by Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, okay.
I've got a recording of this somewhere on a CD.
I would love to hear that.
Wow, that was a moment. Yeah.
The things you do at jazz school.
Very, very cheeky. Very arty. Yeah.
So what was the journey like then into the DJing world that you've also like, you know, had so much success in?
Yeah.
How did that come about? And what was the journey like from, you know, the world of the jazz singer?
Yeah.
To, you know, yeah, you had the band thing, but the DJing has, you know, been huge for you.
I would say that I grew up listening to house music. My mum used to listen to house music. And those like big, juicy female or male vocals, but a lot of the time female vocals like Robin S., for example, were definitely a part of my childhood. So it's never been that far away, that style of music.
Okay.
And when I was 23 is actually when I started going to clubs. So it was maybe that's a little bit later than some people. But in a way, I'm grateful because I was with like seasoned clubbers who kind of understood the lay of the land.
Okay.
And I'm really thankful for that. So I had just awesome experiences, and I was always so infatuated with the DJ and the DJ decks and like what they were doing. And I really wanted to understand it because there's DJs who DJ live in terms of they have a lot of hardware and they're creating the music as they go, or maybe there's elements of it that are live.
Yes.
And then you can also use the decks. And then, there's like the old school of old school, which is records. And that's, still used today as well. Like it's CDs don't get used anymore. Floppy disks definitely don't get used anymore. But records, they still get used. And now we use USBs and we plug them in. So I was really interested in the artistry of that. And also they just look so cool. Like I'm like, these things, they look like you're like at the hull of a spaceship. There's something quite awesome about the visual of DJ decks. And when a little bit later on from that, I don't know, maybe a year on from that, I sort of had this, I guess it was a bit of a vision. It sounds a little bit like wee wee, but of me, and I was an old woman, and I was at a festival and I was DJing, and I was like, maybe that's part of my future. I've always been really interested in it, so I don't know. Maybe I'll find someone to teach me. I just kind of left it. It wasn't something that I was really seeking at that time, but I met Crozier, and he was DJing, and I said, could you give me some lessons? So I had my first lessons with Geordie. Like Geordie taught me how to DJ.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And wow, I'm really glad in this current climate that I diversified in that way. Yeah. I'm super happy about that. DJing, everyone always asks me, like, what do you like better? Do you like DJing better or singing better? I like both. I like both equally. And for the same reasons and also different reasons. Like, they're both an expression of my music and my musicality. With singing, I do find it like a little bit more personable because I'm getting to use my voice. There's not a lot of other instruments there's no other instruments, in fact, that get to use words. And like being the front woman is like, wow, it's such a powerful experience. And I do sometimes have similar experiences when I'm behind the decks, especially when there's a more like interactive audience who are like happy to kind of like come up to the decks, because it can feel a little bit, and maybe people feel like this when they're behind an instrument, I'm not sure, but there feels like there's a little bit of separation because you've got to control this big thing that's in front of you. And like there kind of feels sometimes like there's a little bit of a wall, but it's grateful when I need vocal rest. Like it's so great. And I'm such a night owl. So I love playing in the really early hours of the morning. There's something there that's so special. And I can't use my voice really at that time. Like me singing at 3 a.m., it's not going to happen. But I can DJ and have such an amazing experience and interaction with an audience and still share music.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. It's really interesting what you said about the barrier. Like, I've predominantly played drums, so I've always had that. And I always find it a bit confronting, I guess, when I'm doing an event where the drums are really close to the front, or like we're on the same level rather than like up on a drum riser up the back or something. Like, I guess because I'm not exposed to so much like really close interaction. And I remember playing at the Nightcap for the first time, where I had people sitting like
Behind
directly
you.
behind me, and I could like hear them cheering and, you know, egging me on to like play a bigger fill the next time, or like whatever, you know, just that kind of like really close interaction that I'd never had before. And it was like, whoa, like, oh, like I'm not just in my little world,
Yeah.
like absorbed by the music and the people I'm playing with. Like, you know, I love making music that makes people like want to dance or like feel something, but I guess it's always like very removed because I'm behind this big pile of wood and metal. But I guess like earlier experiences as a singer, you're like right up the front, you're really close, you can move around. And then, you know, you've gone to the static table of a DJ deck. It would feel, understandably so different. But nice that you can still build that connection with the people from what you do.
Yeah.
Like in both roles.
I just try and eyeball people. People either they love it or they hate it. I don't mind. I just look at them. Yeah, because when they love it, it's such a nice connection, like to meet somebody at their eyes and just like have that special moment with them. Yeah.
So what's your approach like when you are DJing? You know, you mentioned like a couple of schools of the type of DJ, like bringing in music to play from records or digital copies or making a lot of the sounds live with hardware. I don't know, like are you in one of those camps or how do you feel about it all?
Yeah, for sure. For me personally, I don't know how to play records. I would love to learn how to play records. I'm a really tactile person, so I'd love to have that experience and understand that flow state. They're also really heavy. And if the technique, like if the record player is not stable, it will skip. But so there's all these kind of like technicalities, I guess, around having like a physical copy of music. But yeah, I'd still love to learn. So I'm definitely in the more digital camp, where I mainly look for songs online. And there's several different websites that do this. I guess the main ones that get used would be Bandcamp, Beatport, and TrackSource. I'm sure there's others, but they're probably the main ones that get used. So you pay for the music and you download it and then you pop it into some software by Pioneer. So Pioneer, they're, I guess, the leading tech giants in electronic DJ decks, or what we call CDJs. But also they make like all different kinds of decks, especially for like home DJs and stuff like that. My first decks were digital DDJs. But yet the majority of clubs will have CDJs of some kind of description. And then, so you pop your songs into Rekordbox, and Rekordbox analyzes these songs. It analyzes them by BPM and also by key as well. And then you kind of have the ability on Rekordbox to put together playlists as well. Like you can, like if you really want to like go ahead and plan a set and be like, this is song 1, this is song 2, you can pop them all in order. Or you can just be like, oh, this is sort of the vibe that I'm going for this event, and I'm going to chuck a whole bunch of songs that I think might work into like this playlist. And then you pop that onto your USB, and then you pop the USB into the CDJ, and then you kind of go from there. So that's what I know. In terms of like hardware, that is something that I'm looking to get into. Geordie and I are starting a project where it will be the two of us. So like both of us DJing, but I'm also going to be singing.
Oh, cool.
And I think, you know, we've got some plans for, you know, bringing in some more hardware like Ableton pushers and even bringing in actual instrumentation, like somebody actually playing the bass guitar or like a bass synth or something like that. So yeah, that's something that I'm really also wanting to get into.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
With the, you know how you were saying sometimes people will plan their set list and others just bring a catalogue.
Yeah.
Which camp do you fall into?
When I first started playing, I was really into pre-planning my sets, and I didn't have as much music either. So it felt really important to plan my sets. And also I was practicing so much, and I would practice my sets before I would go and play them. And I wasn't playing as frequently at the very, very beginning either. So I kind of, I had that time to do that. And I wanted to do that too, because I wanted to be prepared. So at the beginning, definitely was more into the pre-planning. Now, what I really like to do is think about what song I might like to start with and what song I might like to end with, and then just kind of go from there.
Cool.
But that might also change. So I like to get to events, say if I'm closing the event, I like to be there at least for an hour before I have to close, just to see what the vibe is like, and see what kind of music they're playing, what kind of crowd it is, and like do a bit of analyzing. And then I'll just be like thinking about all of the songs that I have. Oh, maybe this song would work. Maybe this. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm going to play that song. And then, yeah, it's like jazz and I get to improvise. Yeah.
Wow. I guess, you know, you can use all the improvisational skills in so many ways.
So many ways. Yeah.
Are there any, you know, like DJs that you try and like emulate or get inspired by?
I'm really inspired by Sunshine, and I feel really lucky to be able to sing with her. And yeah, her mixing style is very, like, it's so her. I'm pretty sure that I've heard her say that she calls it power mixing.
Okay.
And Sunny's a real master of like joining different genres together and doing it in such a fluid way and like really building momentum as she mixes. And I find that really inspiring. I also feel someone that does that as well is DJ Minx, or her other alias is Rachel May. They're two women who've been DJing for a long time in Australia, and listening to their sets and watching them at their craft, yeah, it's been really inspiring for me. Geordie's also been really inspiring for me. He takes a lot of chances as well when he mixes and tries different things, and it's quite playful, and that, like, witnessing that has helped me just let go a little bit and also be really playful. Someone who I watched recently, who I got to stand behind the decks and watch, was a local DJ, AWEL, and wow. Yeah, watching him mix, I feel like I learnt some stuff. Getting to like watch behind him. It was awesome. It was a great set that he played at Section 8. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, because I guess, you know, often people think like, oh, the DJ's just, you know, pressing play, and they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
But what's it like watching someone else, you know, run it rather than you? And how is it that you know, learn from them? Do they tell you stuff, or is it just that, you know, from the experience of being and watching what they're doing and how they're manipulating different things that, you know, it all comes through just like watching a person play another acoustic or traditional instrument.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're watching someone play an instrument. The people who press play, I mean, they probably have a pre-recorded set. And I've got stuff to say about that. And it's not negative either. But like to just only press play once, like, yeah, it's just going to be a pre-recorded set. Like people who get all like, people just press play. Like, yeah, they've done a pre-recorded set, that obviously, because you have to press play multiple times and do a lot of things to mix music.
There's a lot of work that's gone in behind.
There's a lot of work that goes into this. And yeah, if you actually get the opportunity to stand behind somebody while they're DJing, you'll get to see that. And you'll get to see that people also work the decks in the way that anybody works an instrument. Like, it's very personal. People have very personal ways of mixing. And that's also what makes them stand out. It's not just the music that they like to play, it's their style of mixing as well. Yeah.
I guess like you have iconic sounds from different producers, you know, that record enthusiasts would all know and have, and it's the same within your electronic genre. Like you can tell who it is based on the style that they bring to it, or the sounds and combination of different genres and songs. Like, you know, it's artistry just in a different form. Totally. Yeah. I'd like to hear what you have to say about the pre-recorded DJing, if you're happy to share. So I don't know why this is such a point of contention, and it reminds me of some people in the jazz world as well. And this is why I laugh about it, because I know I haven't been DJing for a long time, but I've been doing music professionally for 10 years now. And I just see the same stuff come up all the time that people get angry about, and I find it very amusing. And this is one of them. So there's this whole thing around like the musicality of somebody who's has a pre-recorded set, right? Now, people who are playing at your local club are not going to be there just pressing play because they have a pre-recorded set. This doesn't happen. People who are being asked to create pre-recorded sets are doing that because they're playing to 30,000 people, and there's graphics and lighting that need to be coded into the set that they're going to be playing. So they still have to record this set in their home and play it live, and then give it to the large festival or event that they're going to just be pressing play at. And it's for the experience of being there. It's like this audience experience of being there. And in a way, I don't think that that's less musical or that somebody has less skill because they're just pressing play. They've already had to put in the work, and they've probably put in the work for many, many, many years. That's why they're getting asked to do this extremely large event, and being asked to produce a pre-recorded set. And yeah, it kind of reminds me of like, I remember Jordan Murray, who was one of our professors at uni, and he once said that he likes to, sometimes with his improvisations, he actually likes to write them out. Right. And that he would go and test out his like written improvisation at the gig. And I remember people getting kind of shitty about it. And it's like, well, what's the issue? He's still written it out. Like, it's still come from the top of his dome onto the page. And like, he still has all of these ideas because he's an amazing musician. Like, he's not cheating because he's done that. Like, why are you so upset? I remember a band director tearing up somebody's solo that they found that they had, you know, taped to the bridge of their double bass. that they were going to play in the break, and the band director found it and tore it up before we went on stage and said, that's not improvisation. And yeah, it's a hotly contested issue.
Yeah. I find it really, like, how much ego do you have to be like, this is what art is, and anything that's not this is not art? Like, what? For the experience of the musician who's like taken the time to actually write that out and cared for it, like they obviously care for it to write it out, and they're doing it because it sounds good. They want the audience to enjoy this as well. Like, that's art, and it's just as much art as if you didn't write it out and you're just playing it in the moment and you're in the flow. It's two different ways of getting to the same experience. Is one better than the other? Well, not really. That's so subjective.
Yeah, it's definitely like a way of thinking about, are you playing for yourself versus like, are you playing for the audience? I think, so much of especially like the jazz players, I remember on the trip we did to NYU, watching a bunch of the professors perform, a free jazz piece for, I can't remember how long it was, 90 minutes or something. And people started walking out within like a minute of the performance starting because it was so sonically tense, I suppose, that it was confronting and very uncomfortable to listen to. And so people immediately started leaving. And I remember talking to some people about it. And, there's so many different reasons why people play music like that. But very often it's about the artist creating that experience and they're thinking about them. Yeah. And they are thinking about the audience, but the audience is not really sort of part of it. Yeah. Whereas something like a 30,000 person festival set, it's not really about that person on the stage and what they're doing as much as it is about the collective experience of feeling the music and being there with all the other people and the visual light show that, all of your senses are fully engaged in this experience. I guess it's quite different worlds, but at the same time, everyone's still musicians, really.
Exactly. And it's still all art. Like, we need more art. We shouldn't be tearing each other down because someone's making art and you don't like the way that it's done. Like, that just seems really counterintuitive to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We should all be building each other up, really. And, that's part of the reason for doing the podcast, just to, have a platform for bringing in a whole bunch of different types of musicians to, be supportive of the community we have in Melbourne, which is, really thriving.
It's amazing here. We're so lucky.
Absolutely. And just so many different types of talents and different thoughts and different, all of the different things. Yeah. But, hopefully a space that we can build for, lifting up all types of different people and the music that they make. I've got a question for you from a previous guest. Oh. Because I'm trying out this little game of, get a question and pass it on.
I love that.
So this question is from a guest, Peter Caroline, who's like a keys player and producer. Yeah. And he's just started like a new community-based record label called North Fitzroy Records.
North Fitzroy Records.
And this is his question.
What was the most transcendent experience you ever had at a live gig?
Oh, there's been a few. That's a great question. Well, my immediate thought went to when I got to perform with my band Honey at Golden Plains Festival in 2019. Wow. That was our biggest crowd. There was 10,000 people there. And that festival, there's only one stage. And so that means like even if people aren't at the stage, they're still hearing the music. I just I didn't wear like in-ears or anything. I really wanted to like experience it. And it seriously felt like 5 seconds.
Wow.
It was a 45-minute set and it just went like that. So much build up for this moment that was such a flash in the pan, but at the same time, it's so weird. Like you can't really fathom that many people. Like when you look out and there's just this sea of human beings. Oh my gosh. I kind of felt like I left my body. Yeah, like it was transcendent. Wow. You just feel like you're being carried by the audience, because when you play smaller shows, I mean, we were playing to like 600, 700 people like leading up to that. And that's still a lot of people, but there's kind of this like energy exchange that you can have with like a slightly smaller audience, where there's like that you can feel like this real like energetic give and take. Mm-hmm. When there's that many people, like, wow, I didn't really feel necessarily like I was giving. I just felt like the audience is giving. Like there's that much energy like being pushed towards you in the best possible way, like not in a negative way at all. Like it's just beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's like the best high I've ever been on in my life.
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to keep chatting to you, but we've sort of come to the end of our time on this podcast. So you'll just have to come back.
I'm going to have to come back.
Keep sharing lots of stories, please. But I'd like to wrap up with just 5 quick answer questions.
Sure.
So what's your favourite venue to play at in Melbourne?
For live music, I would have to say the Nightcat. And then for electronic music, of course, 161.
What would be, and let's do both again, your dream venue to play at?
Dream venue to play at? Wow. The Forum, but for both, for sure. Yeah, would love to play the Forum.
What is your coffee order?
Oh, I don't really drink coffee anymore, so it's a chai. With lactose-free milk or oat milk.
I love this question because I was trying to come up with like some slightly Melbourne-centric questions like for the theme, and Lucy was like, you should ask people what their coffee order is because it's such a Melbourne thing. And so far, I don't think anyone has said coffee with normal milk.
But that's so Melbourne as well.
It's great. Or maybe Tony did this morning. Anyway, it's great. Yeah. Yeah, so good. What's your favourite place to get food after a gig?
Oh, so there's a really, really good souvlaki place on Brunswick Street. That's amazing. That's probably like a go-to, I would say, most gigs. Yeah.
Yep. And what's one piece of advice that you'd give to your younger self?
Oh, just keep going. It's going to be great.
Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Amber.
Thanks for having me.
Where is like the best place for listeners to find out about, the gigs that you've got coming up?
Yeah.
Connect with you to ask, for you to feature on a song or do some production work with. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
It would be my Instagram. So Amber, Amber, Ferraro. It's like Ferrari, but with an O. So Ferraro. I don't think there's like very many of me even on Instagram. So you'll find me. That would be the best way.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what about like your silhouette experiences? If someone wanted to come along or find out more about that, where would they be best to go?
So silhouette.experience on Instagram. That would be where you'd find us. But also if you follow me, it's in my bio. So you'd be able to just like click on the link there and head over.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Amber.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us on Our Drummers Musicians. I hope you enjoyed getting to know another Melbourne muso like I did. Help us grow by leaving a review, share the podcast with friends and family, and subscribe on our website for extra info. Got a guest you'd love to hear on the show? Please let us know at ourdrummersmusicians.com. See you next time.